Hey, what's up you guys? You want to meet my plants? It is a gorgeous Sunday afternoon. I just finished preaching and I have not yet hit that afternoon lull where I just need to take a nap. So I'm going to spend a few hours out here just planting some plants because guys, I've got plants to plant. I'm totally ready. I've got my boots on. I've got my nasty pants on. I call these my nasty pants because they go with me pretty much everywhere that things are about to get nasty. When I go camping, when I'm sanding stuff in my wood shop, they take a beating. And even though they're not particularly attractive, they seem to do a really, really good job. They actually went with me all the way to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and I still have not found any holes in these pants. It's incredible. Olivia makes fun of me because they don't look particularly cool, but let me ask you this, Olivia. Can your pants turn into shorts with a zipper? I didn't think so. You have to change pants if you want to be cool. Anyway, the only problem that I've discovered with these nasty pants is that they kind of make a swishy noise when I'm walking, and for some reason that seems to absolutely terrify my pet rabbits. Rue, it's okay. They're just pants, Rue. Humphrey, they're just my pants. Why are you so scared of my pants? Just pants. Are you guys terrified of the pants? Anyway, one of my dreams for this property is that I want to make this a permaculture food forest. And what that means is I want to grow a ton of stuff and I want to use the techniques of permaculture to make it really, really fruitful. And basically what permaculture is you work with natural systems to basically let nature do what nature does, but do it for your benefit. So for example, you don't have to fertilize a forest because trees fall down and they rot and they turn into the ground, and then the other trees use those nutrients, etc. And then there's other plants in the forest that grab nitrogen from the air and other plants that dig up nutrients from the soil, and all of it is creating this ecosystem that works really well. So in permaculture, you do the exact same thing, you just do it with fruit trees and nut trees and herbs and things. So you want to use plants that work together to create an abundance. And here's why I'm so excited, because I actually just got some of my very first plants for my permaculture food forest. I got them at a place called Brambleberry Permaculture Farm, which is like a nursery for all the kinds of plants that I would want to start a permaculture food forest. It's down in southern Indiana, gorgeous location, incredible place, and the people I met there, especially the owner Darren, incredibly kind people. We just shared some of the same passion for reconnecting with God's creation and nurturing the creation around us. That's part of our vocation as humans. Anyway, he set me up with some really cool plants, and tell you what, let me show you what I got. It's pretty cool. So the first plant that I put in the ground, this is an apple tree. It is a dwarf apple tree, so it's not going to get huge, but what makes this tree unique is that its fruit, they're like these dark reddish purple apples that are really dense and really cool looking, kind of unique. They happen to be in season when I went down there the other day, so I got to try one, and I got to tell you, it was like a really cool, complex flavor. It was really, really tasty, really enjoyable, so I can't wait for this tree to get a little bigger and start fruiting. I'm gonna have to figure out how to prune at some point because I don't really even know where to begin. Along with this apple tree, I've created the beginnings of what's called a guild of plants that all work together to help the apple tree. So for example, I've got some clover over here. This clover is going to become a bit of a ground cover, which will not only fix nitrogen from the air, but it'll also prevent other plants from growing. Right here, I've got some strawberries. Now this is a strawberry plant that's called everbearing. And everbearing strawberries are a little different than traditional strawberries. Normally, when you've got traditional strawberries, they give you one big burst of fruit, like all at one time. Like maybe over a course of a couple weeks, you'll get a ton of fruit. They're huge, they're gorgeous, and delicious. And I do have one of those plants over there. I'll show you that later. But this one, everbearing, it actually produces fruit through the entire season. So you might be getting fruit from spring all the way till fall. Now, each plant might only have like 1 or 2 fruits a week. You're not going to get a ton, but you get it all year long. So it's kind of like a little snack that you can have when you're out here working in the garden. But as with all strawberry plants, these start to send out runners that become their own plants, and those plants then can send out runners and become other plants. So eventually I could have a ton of these everbearing strawberries, and pretty much any time I or someone else comes out to this food forest, they're going to be able to have strawberries to eat, at least during the spring, summer, and fall. Over here we've got some lemon mint. This is just a herb that kind of helps to create that herb layer that replicates a forest. Not only will it be nice, the bunnies will love it, we'll love it for our cooking and stuff, but it will again help to create a sort of a healthy biosphere around this apple tree. Oh, check it out. We've already got some wildlife living in our forest. That's one of the really cool things about permaculture is a lot of the plants that I'll be planting attract beneficial insects. So these beneficial insects, they do a few things. Some of them actually eat the bad insects, the ones that you don't want on your plants. some of them will become pollinators, and they'll go back and forth and pollinate the different plants you have. And some of them just become food for birds and stuff, and so a lot of wild birds will start to make their home in this area, which is really, really cool. So I'm hoping that within, 3 to 5 years, not only will there be a bunch of food here to eat throughout the year, but there will be a whole abundance of creatures that call this place their home, that live in the trees, that live in the shrubs, and make this kind of a whole ecosystem out here, which was just a pasture for horses before. One of the plants I'm really excited about is this one right here. It's comfrey is what it's called. Comfrey. Sounds like Humphrey the rabbit, but it's not. It's comfrey. And this plant is a nutrient accumulator. So what it does is it's got this really long taproot that goes super far down into the ground. And that taproot then, it takes those minerals from way down deep and pulls them up into its big, broad leaves. And those leaves, because the plant is so aggressive, you can chop and drop them 4 or 5 times a year. And by chopping and dropping them, they basically start to dissolve back into the soil, and all the nutrients that the plant brought to the surface then become shared by all the other plants in the area. So it's a nutrient accumulator, which is a really cool, useful thing. And it's a very easy plant to separate and multiply. So I'll be able to have comfrey plants all over the place helping to accumulate nutrients as this grows. So over here, I have my first blackberry plant. Now this plant, kind of similar to the strawberries, it's a trailing type. So as it grows, it'll tip over, and when that tip hits the soil, that tip then will start to put down roots and become its own plant. At that point, you could essentially cut it in half, and you've got 2 blackberry plants, and they're both clones of the original. You do that again and again and again, and pretty soon you've got yourself an entire field of blackberries, which is pretty cool. Eventually, I'm going to want to put these on a trellis so that they can actually grow pretty high and give us an abundance of fruit. But right now, I'm curious to see if I can get 2 plants for the price of 1. This plant is called a sunchoke or a Jerusalem artichoke. It's actually completely different from an artichoke. I don't know why. It's like a misnomer. What's cool about Jerusalem artichokes is that they have these, it will be like a big sunflower, which is cool and pretty and attracts insects, but underneath the ground, these plants produce these edible tubers. They're like these little, I don't know, they look like they're about the size of your finger, at least the one that I tried at Brambleberry. They taste somewhere between like a potato and a radish. I don't know, kind of a crunchy potato. And apparently they are incredible for your gut health because your stomach can't digest them, but they get digested by your gut bacteria, which is really good for like overall health. Although there is a side effect. Apparently they're also called Jerusalem fartichokes because they do cause some flatulence as your gut flora gets really excited. This plant right here is called a seedless che. It's an import. It's an Asian tree. I got to try one of these fruits when I was at Brambleberry, and they're like these little tiny knobbly looking fruits that when you pop them into your mouth and bite down, it's basically like the juice of a watermelon. It's got a bit of an astringent aftertaste, and it tastes like you're chewing on a watermelon, but there's no watermelon. It's just this little tiny fruit on a tree. So I don't know. I think this will be pretty cool when it gets really big. This is sorrel. This is a leafy green that you can eat and use in salads or whatever. And really this is just here to kind of add some diversity to the food forest and give me another option and some other plants that are beneficial that are covering the ground and not letting weeds grow up as much. This right here, this is a pawpaw tree, and I'll be honest, I have 2 of these because they need pollinators, so there's going to be 2 of them. I've never had pawpaws before. In a lot of the stuff that I've read and seen, a lot of people in permaculture use pawpaws. I think it's appropriate for this climate or something like that, so I'm just going to give it a shot and see what happens. Over here, we've got a little stand or a little row of hazelnut trees. There need to be 3 to 5 of them next to each other because they have to pollinate by wind. So when you have them relatively close to one another, they can pollinate one another and create these really delicious little hazelnuts. Now, I don't know how I'm going to be able to win the battle against all the squirrels because apparently when hazelnuts start bearing their fruit and start having these nuts, the squirrels are on it immediately after they're ripe. So I'm going to have to learn the timing of these plants as the seasons go on so that I'm able to get the hazelnuts before the animals do. And then right here is the other strawberry I was telling you about. This is the one that will bear early in the season. Sometime early spring, I'll get a really big burst of red strawberries and really nice, and it'll pretty much sit dormant the rest of the year. Finally, back here, I have a sour cherry tree. These aren't really the kind of cherries that you think of when you like go to the supermarket and buy cherries to eat, but they're really great for making preserves and jams and all that stuff, so it'll be cool to have these. And at some point I'll get a sweet cherry tree as well, because I just want to make sure that we've got a good mix. So let me show you the process that I've been going through to get all these plants in the ground. As it turns out, the soil here is actually pretty thick, solid clay, and it hasn't rained here in quite a while, so the top layer of soil, it's really hard and dense, and it's not ideal for baby plants to put down their roots. So I've had to do a few things. First of all, I've made use of this giant pile. You remember this? This is all horse manure.
It's a big pile of poop.
I've been using this horse manure to create a top dressing for the ground that has lots of good nutrients, but also is a little bit softer and more open than the clay. Don't worry, it doesn't smell bad, and it's been here long enough that it's decomposed and it's not as hot with fertilizer, so it's not going to burn the roots of the plants, I don't think. So I've been creating this as a top layer for the ground, but I still want to make sure that the roots are going to have somewhere to go underneath. So I have to break up the top layer of the soil with a shovel. Yet again, I am on my way to having a rockin' farmer's bod, because this is a lot of work. The people who lived here before us left a pretty nice pile of mulch, and I'm able to use that as the mulch layer on top of the mounds that I'm making. Hello. Hi. It's really important to have good mulch for a couple reasons. One, it helps to keep the moisture in the soil so it's not evaporating as quickly, and it protects from extreme cold, so it'll actually help the plant stay a little bit warmer when it gets really frosty, and it decomposes pretty slowly, just like a forest, so that the nutrients from that wood are able to be used by the plants over time as it decomposes. Give everything a good spray with water, and we're off to the races. Now, I don't know how much of this stuff is even going to survive the winter. If I had done this all over again, I might have gone down to Brambleberry a lot sooner so I could get these things in the ground before the frosts come. But it's 2.5 hours away, so this was the first chance I had to get down there. Oh well, some of the stuff will survive, and this will be the beginning of my permaculture food forest. Truth is, I still don't know what I'm doing. I have no clue what I'm doing, but I am having a blast out here for a couple of reasons, a couple of big reasons. Number one, it is just so cool to actually get my hands dirty, literally. I know it's ridiculous. I'm just a suburban kid, and to be able to actually interact with the soil, to like dig a hole, doesn't seem like much, but I feel way more connected to this place simply because I'm out here working the ground. But in a more kind of theological way, I'm actually really enjoying what this is doing to my spirit as I consider the sort of the biblical role that humans have in the world. In Genesis, it talks about humans being given the job of tilling the soil or keeping the soil. That's not so much a reference to like the actual physical act of digging up the soil. It's more of a reference to the idea that we are the ones to keep and maintain and nurture the creation itself. That's the role that we have. And so being able to plant some trees and help strawberries grow and help feed my apple tree with nutrients from the ground, like that kind of stuff is so cool, and it feels like what we were meant to do. You know what I mean? Anyway, stay tuned, subscribe, the journey will continue. I may not know what I'm doing. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, or you see something I'm doing that you're like, that's totally not going to work, leave me a comment below, because I really am open to any knowledge that you guys have. I am looking forward to seeing what happens as this permaculture food forest begins to grow. See you on the next one. Bye.